what this is? It's a candle mold, the thing into which liquid wax or tallow grease was poured to make candles. People enjoy making candles even today. But there was a time before electric lights, when candles were very necessary in every home. Today, we're going to hear about a person who learned to be a candle maker, but more important, later in his life, he helped people understand how electricity could be used. Oh, he did a great many important things in his lifetime. His name was Benjamin Franklin. To learn about Ben, we must first go to the city of Boston in the colony of Massachusetts, and then to the city of Philadelphia in the colony of Pennsylvania. And before we start our story, I'd like to tell you a little something about Pennsylvania, because it was the only one of the 13 American colonies that was named for the person who settled it. That person was William Penn. William Penn lived in England. He was a leader of the Quakers. Now, the Quakers believed in leading simple lives, and like the Pilgrims, they did not want to follow the rules of the Church of England. They wanted to go to America where they could live and worship as they pleased. Now, the King of England owed William Penn's family a great deal of money. And to pay that debt, he gave William Penn some land in the New World. The king called it Pennsylvania, meaning Penn's land of trees. And those of you who know Pennsylvania know that it's still full of trees. Well, when William Penn got to the New World, he paid the Indians for the land he planned to use, and he also made an agreement to live peacefully with them. Then William Penn invited the Quakers and anyone else who would agree to live in peace to settle in his colony. William Penn planned a magnificent city for his colony. He called it Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. And it was in Philadelphia that Benjamin Franklin lived most of his life. Our story about Ben, however, starts when he was only 10 years old and living in Boston. Josiah Franklin looked down the long dinner table at his many children. They were dipping their spoons into stew. His youngest son, 10-year-old Ben, kept his head bent down over his plate. He didn't want to look up at his father. In school this morning, he'd failed again in arithmetic. He liked to read, but not to do sums. What did he have a head for? To go to sea, he thought, to wear a sailor's knitted cap. That's what his head was fit for. It could be so easy. Right here in Boston in the year 1716, there were plenty of ships down at the harbor. Why couldn't he start out as a cabin boy on a ship? And then, who knows, he might go on to become a sailor, a mate, even a captain. But Father Franklin had other plans. "You will come into the business with me," he said. "The making of candles is a good, honest trade." And so at the age of 10, Ben left school and went to work for his father. Ben's father taught him to cut wick for the candles, how to fill the dipping molds so the hot tallow would not spill over, how to mind the shop and wait on customers. In his free time, Ben liked to go swimming or fishing with his friends. He also liked to fly kites, and one day he flew a kite and swam both at the same time. It was a sunny day, and there was a strong wind. Ben wanted to try an experiment. He tied the end of the kite string to a big stick. Then he splashed into the water and floated on his back. He kept his hands behind his back and held on to the stick. Soon he was being pulled by the wind across the pond, faster and faster all the way to the far shore. Oh, there were to be many more experiments in Ben's life, each one different, and many bringing something useful to the world. worked in the candle trade for 2 years, and then when he was 12, there was a sudden change. His grown-up brother James opened up a printing shop. James needed a helper, and he asked Father Franklin if Ben could work for him. Father Franklin knew that Ben was fond of books and reading, and he decided that his youngest son would like the smell of a printing press better than tallow grease. Ben did like the shop. He liked the big apron he wore at work, and he liked the clatter and busy hum of the printing presses. But his brother James was a very hard master. As soon as Ben finished one task, James had another waiting for him. Ben now had almost no free time to play with his friends. A few years went by, and the printing shop was doing very well. So well that James felt he could afford to put out a newspaper. But at that time, there were only 3 newspapers in all of the American colonies. James felt there was room for a 4th, and so he began to print his own. Soon it had many readers. People sent letters and clever sayings into the paper, and James printed the best of them. Ben wanted to write for the paper himself, but he knew his brother would never let him. A newspaper was for grown-ups. But suppose he sent in something for the paper, and James didn't know it was from his young brother. He could change his handwriting, and he could sign another name. That night, Ben stayed up very late. Early in the morning, he slipped a folded paper under the front door of the print shop. When James came to work, he found the note, and he started to read it.
This is good. This is very good.
What is it?
A letter that's good enough to print. One of the best ever.
Is it by anyone you know?
No, it's from a very clever woman named, let me see. Her name is Silence Dogood, and that's a very good name indeed. Silence Dogood will do good from now on, not to keep her silence, but to keep sending her clever letters into our paper. Here, set this in type. I hope she sends in many more to us.
Somehow I think she will.
Ben had fun writing more letters for the paper under the name of Silence Dogood, but it was not fun working in the print shop. Whenever anything went wrong, James blamed his young brother. Sometimes when James got very angry, he beat Ben. The blows came more and more often, and when Ben was 17, he decided to run away. He went to Philadelphia, arriving there one cold winter morning with very little money in his pocket. But he was lucky. He found a job with a printer. In a few years, Ben was able to open his own print shop. He became known as one of the best printers in Philadelphia. Like his brother, he too started a newspaper. Ben was full of ideas on how to improve his own business and how to improve the city of Philadelphia. One thing the city needed was a supply of good books. Only rich people were able to afford books in those days. They would send away to England for the books they wanted. Now, Ben was not rich, nor were most of his friends. But he thought if they each put in a little bit of money, they would have quite a large sum, and they could send to England for a lot of books. No one person would own the books, but they would lend them back and forth and keep them in one central place. Ben's idea for a library worked. If Philadelphia needed more books, Ben thought, why not write and print his own? So he decided to print an almanac, a book of important facts and dates for the year. He also put funny stories and wise sayings in his almanac. Instead of using his own name, he called it Poor Richard's Almanac. The book was a great success. People passed on to each other the clever sayings of Poor Richard. And many of those sayings are still known to us today, like, early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, or a penny saved is a penny earned. Another idea of Ben's was a plan to fight fires. Often a house or store would burn to the ground before the owner was able to put out the flames. The trouble was that each man was working by himself with one bucket. Franklin suggested they form a group. Each man would keep 2 water buckets ready at all times, and 4 big bags that could be used to carry things out of burning houses. If a fire broke out anywhere, all the men would come to help. And so, thanks to Ben Franklin, the first fire department was set up. What new idea would he think of next? His new ideas included a police department, a hospital, a school or college for older students. And he also invented a stove that was a great help to people during the cold winters. Perhaps one of the most important things he did was to discover that lightning is made of electricity. To do this, he experimented with a silk kite. If lightning were made of electricity, he thought, the silk kite would catch it during a storm. Then, if he held a metal key in his hand, the electricity would run down the kite string and sparks would appear in the key. He'd have his proof. He worked on his plans, and when a great thunderstorm broke out one day, he was ready. The experiment worked. Ben Franklin became famous as the man who tamed wild lightning. Ben Franklin served the people and his country in other ways, too. When the American colonists became angry with England for the way they were being treated, Ben was sent across the ocean to explain their feelings to the King of England. He was also one of the men chosen to help write out a Declaration of Independence for the colonies. During the War for Independence, Ben was sent to France. He pleaded with the French for troops and ships and money to help the Americans win the war against England. With France's help, the war finally ended. When Ben sailed home from France, he was an old man and tired. Oh, but when the boat docked at Philadelphia, he was proud and happy as he stepped onto his own country's land, his own free country's land. The whole city had turned out to welcome him home. It was a welcome fit for a king. Benjamin Franklin was a man his country and the whole world would remember always. I have told you just part of The Story of Ben Franklin by Eve Merriam. I think that you'll find it will be in a library so that you can borrow it to read or hear the rest of it. We have Ben Franklin to thank for those libraries. I know I'm going to be going to one soon. I want to find more stories about America to share with you. Goodbye.
The preceding program was made possible by a grant from the Ohio Department of Education.